James Carter rushed down the crowded New York City sidewalk, gripping the worn leather strap of his briefcase. His heart pounded, and beads of sweat formed at his temple. He was running late for the most important job interview of his life. Today was supposed to be the turning point, the moment he proved to himself and his younger sister, Emily, that their struggles were about to end. For months, James had sent out countless applications, attended interviews that led nowhere, and battled the exhaustion of working night shifts at a local diner just to keep a roof over their heads. But this opportunity, an executive assistant position at one of the city's most prestigious firms, was his best shot. He checked his watch. If he sprinted the next 3 blocks, he might just make it. As he took a deep breath and prepared to run, a faint voice reached his ears. "Excuse me, young man, could you help me?" James turned to see an elderly woman standing at the corner, gripping the handle of a small metal shopping cart filled with groceries. She had the frail appearance of someone who had seen many years, but her eyes held a quiet strength. The wind tugged at the oversized scarf around her neck, and she shivered slightly. His instincts told him to keep moving, he couldn't be late. But something in the way her wrinkled hands trembled as she tried to adjust her grip made him pause. "Are you all right, ma'am?" he asked. "I was trying to catch a cab, but they just keep passing me by," she said with a weary smile. "And this cart, it's heavier than I thought. Would you mind helping me?" James glanced at his watch again. The seconds ticked away. If he stayed, he'd miss his interview. If he left, guilt would gnaw at him all day. He sighed and gave a small, resigned chuckle. "Where do you need to go?" Her face lit up. "Just a few blocks down. I live in the brownstone at the end of 52nd Street. James took hold of the cart, surprised by the weight of it. He fell into step beside her, making sure she walked steadily. They moved slowly, the city buzzing around them. As they walked, they talked. She introduced herself as Eleanor. She told him she'd lived in the city all her life, had lost her husband years ago, and spent most of her days enjoying the little things, reading in the park, chatting with neighbors, reminiscing about the old days. James found himself smiling as he listened. There was something warm about her presence, like talking to a grandmother he never had. Half an hour later, they reached her brownstone, a modest yet elegant building tucked between newer high-rises. She turned to him, her eyes soft with gratitude. "You're a kind soul," she said. "Not many young people would stop for an old woman these days." James scratched the back of his head. "It was nothing, really. Just making sure you got home safe." She held his hand for a moment, her grip surprisingly firm. "I hope good things find you, young man. You deserve it." James forced a smile, but deep down, disappointment gnawed at him. He checked his phone, 5 missed calls from the recruiter. He had missed his chance. With a heavy heart, he said his goodbyes and left, trying to push away the thought that today could have changed his future. The next morning, James woke up feeling drained. He had no job prospects left and no idea what to do next. Then, his phone rang. An unfamiliar number. "Hello? Mr. Carter?" A woman's crisp voice came through the speaker. "I'm calling on behalf of Eleanor Kingston. She would like to meet with you." James frowned. "Eleanor? The elderly woman from yesterday?" "Yes. She insists it's urgent. Could you come to the Kingston estate today at noon?" Kingston estate? His stomach flipped. That name sounded familiar. Then it hit him. Eleanor Kingston, the reclusive billionaire, philanthropist, and one of the wealthiest women in the country. James arrived at the estate, a sprawling mansion unlike anything he had ever seen. Inside, Eleanor greeted him with the same warm smile. "I owe you an apology," she said. "I wasn't entirely honest yesterday. I wanted to see what kind of man you were, without any expectations. You sacrificed something important to help a stranger, and that tells me everything I need to know." James was speechless. I know you missed an interview, she continued. So, I'd like to offer you a job. A job? She nodded. I need someone I can trust. Someone with integrity. How would you feel about working as my personal assistant? James' mind raced. He had spent months chasing job offers, only to have one fall into his lap because of a simple act of kindness. Tears burned the back of his eyes as he managed a choked laugh. I'd be honored. Eleanor smiled knowingly. I had a feeling you'd say that. Months later, James sat in his new office at the Kingston Foundation, overseeing projects that provided scholarships, housing, and opportunities for those in need, people like him. One evening, as he and Eleanor sat by the fireplace, she turned to him with a twinkle in her eye. You thought you lost an opportunity that day, didn't you? James chuckled. Yeah, I did. She patted his hand. Life has a funny way of rewarding those who do good, even when no one's watching. James knew now that missing that interview wasn't a failure, it was fate. And sometimes, the best opportunities come when you least expect them. The